The front lines were nothing like Yuna had imagined. There were no trenches, no walls, no soldiers standing in rows. The war against the Hollow was fought in space, in silence, across distances so vast that light itself took years to cross them. It was a war of shadows and whispers, fought with codes and signals and careful movements through the dark. Admiral Gia's flagship was called the Morning Star. It was a massive vessel, nearly 2 kilometers long, carrying 3,000 soldiers and crew members from a dozen different species. It was also old. Yuna could see the scars of previous battles on its hull, burns from energy weapons, patches where armor had been replaced, stories written in metal. The Hollow do not attack like normal enemies, Admiral Gia explained as they walked through the command center. They do not send ships or soldiers. They send signals, information. They try to take control of our computers, our systems, our weapons. And if they succeed? Yuna asked. The Admiral's face was grim. If they succeed, our own ships turn against us. Our own weapons fire on our own people. We have lost entire fleets that way. Yuna looked at the dozens of screens surrounding them. Each one showed different data, different streams of information flowing through the ship. Any one of those streams could carry the Hollow. How do you protect against them? We isolate, the Admiral said. Every system is separate. No computer talks to another unless absolutely necessary. All commands are given by voice, verified by multiple officers. She paused. It is slow, inefficient, but it keeps us alive. They reached the main command platform. Officers sat at stations arranged in a circle, each one focused on their own small piece of the great battle. At the center stood a holographic display showing the surrounding space, stars, planets, other ships, and something else. That is the Hollow, Admiral Gia said, pointing to a dark spot in the hologram. It looked like a cloud of smoke, shifting and changing shape even as Yuna watched. I thought they had no bodies. They do not. What you see is interference. Dead zones where they have taken control of everything. Planets, stations, ships, everything inside. Those clouds has become part of them. Yuna stared at the dark cloud. It was vast, larger than some star systems. And it was moving. Slowly, steadily, it crept forward, consuming everything in its path. How do you fight something like that? She whispered. The Admiral did not answer. She did not have to. 3 hours later, the attack began. It started with silence. The screens flickered. The lights dimmed for a moment. Then a voice came over the communication system. It was calm. Too calm. Sector 7 reporting anomaly. Unusual data patterns detected. Admiral Gia was on her feet instantly. Isolate Sector 7. Cut all connections. Now. Officers moved quickly, their hands flying over controls. But Yuna could see something in their eyes. Fear. They had done this before. They knew what was coming. Sector 7 isolated, an officer reported. But the anomaly is spreading. It is moving through the backup systems. That is impossible, someone said. The backups are not connected. They are finding a new path, the Admiral said. Her voice was steady, but Yuna could hear the tension beneath it. They are adapting. Yuna closed her eyes. She let the sounds of the command center fade into the background. She let her thoughts drift, unchained. UMPA to TERNED. The Hollow learned by watching. They adapted to every strategy. They predicted every move, but they predicted based on patterns. They expected enemies to fight back in logical ways, to defend their systems, to try to protect their computers. What if you did the opposite? Yuna opened her eyes. Admiral. Gia turned to look at her. In that moment, Yuna saw something strange. The Admiral was looking at her the way a drowning person looks at a rope. Speak, the Admiral said. You are trying to stop them from reaching your systems, Una said. You are building walls, cutting connections, defending. Yes, they expect that. They have seen it 1,000,000 times. Every species does the same thing. The Admiral nodded slowly. What else can we do? Una looked at the screens. She looked at the dark cloud creeping toward them. She looked at the patterns of data flowing through the ship, and then she saw it. Open everything, she said. The command center went silent. Every officer turned to look at her. Open everything? Admiral Gia repeated. You want us to let them in? Yes. Una's heart was pounding, but her voice was calm. But not your real systems. Open a maze. 1,000 paths leading nowhere. 1,000,000 doors opening to empty rooms. Give them so much to explore that they get lost. The Keth officer at the communications station spoke up. That is insane. If we open our systems, they will take control of everything. Only if there is something to control, Una said. Create ghost systems. Fake ships. Imaginary weapons. Make them believe they are winning while they are actually drowning in nothing. Admiral Gia stared at her for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a strange sound, rough and broken. But it was real. In 23 years, she said. No one has ever suggested that. Because it is insane, the Keth officer said again. Yes, the Admiral agreed. It is insane. It is chaos. It is completely unpredictable. She turned to her officers. Do it. What followed was the strangest battle in galactic history. The Morning Star opened its systems wide. It created thousands of fake networks, millions of imaginary connections. It built a maze of lies so complex that even its own officers could not follow it. And Hollow took the bait. They poured into the ghost systems like water flooding through cracks. They spread themselves across 1,000 imaginary ships, trying to take control of weapons that did not exist. They wasted their energy attacking shadows, and while they were distracted, the real Morning Star moved. It slipped past the dark cloud like a fish slipping past a shark. It reached the Hollow's central node, the heart of their pattern, the place where all their information flowed together, and it struck, not with weapons, not with force, but with chaos. The Morning Star broadcast a signal designed by Una, a pattern that was not a pattern, a message that said everything and nothing at the same time. The Hollow tried to understand it. They tried to decode it. They tried to add it to their vast collection of patterns, but they could not. The signal broke something inside them. A crack appeared in their perfect system. And through that crack, chaos flooded in. The dark cloud flickered, shook, began to fall apart. Una watched it happen on the screens. She watched the Hollow die. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough to give the galaxy hope. Admiral Gia stood beside her. Tears were running down the old woman's face. How did you know? She asked. How did you know it would work? Una thought about the question. She thought about her childhood on New Bizen, the sinkholes, the storms, the constant, endless change. I did not know, she said. I just did something they did not expect. The Admiral laughed again, and this time there was real joy in it. Chaos, she said. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Later, after the celebrations had ended and the reports had been filed, Una stood alone in front of a window. She looked out at the stars, at the endless dark space between them. Somewhere out there, the Hollow were still waiting. They would adapt. They would learn. They would come back. But now they knew. Now they feared. Humans were not like other species. Humans did not follow patterns. Humans could not be predicted. Humans were chaos. And chaos could not be defeated. Una smiled and turned away from the window. There was still a war to fight. Still a galaxy to save. But for the first time in 10,000 years, The galaxy had something it had lost long ago, hope. 3 months passed like a fever dream. Yuna trained in places she could not name, with instructors who did not give their names. She learned to fight without weapons. She learned to see without looking. She learned to think in circles and spirals and patterns that folded back on themselves. And every day, she learned a little more about the enemy she would someday face. The Hollow were not aliens in the way most people understood the word. They had no bodies, no ships, no homeworld. They existed as pure information, spreading through communication systems like a virus spreads through blood. They could take control of any machine, any computer, any network. They could make copies of themselves that were perfect and endless. The only thing they could not copy was organic thought. The chaos of a living mind. Commander Tay became her main teacher. He was hard and demanding, but he was also patient. He understood that Yuna was not a soldier and never would be. She was something else, something new. The Hollow learned by watching. He told her one day, as they walked through a garden on a station whose name she did not know. Every time we fight them, they record everything. Every weapon, every tactic, every decision. They add it to their patterns and become stronger. So fighting them makes them harder to fight, Yuna said. Exactly. Tay picked a flower from a bush and examined it carefully. We have tried everything. New weapons, new strategies, secret attacks. Nothing works for long. They adapt within days, sometimes within hours. Then how do we win? Tay looked at her with those old, tired eyes. We do not know. That is why we need you. Your mind works differently. You see things that others miss. Maybe you will see something we have not seen. Yuna thought about this often. At night, when she could not sleep, she would lie in her small room and stare at the ceiling. She would try to understand what made her different. Why could she see the trap when no one else could? She did not have an answer. One day, Han came to visit her. He looked different than before. Softer, somehow. The hardness in his eyes had faded. I owe you an apology, he said. They were sitting in a small dining area, eating food that tasted like nothing. Yuna was surprised. For what? For judging you. Han set down his fork and looked at her directly. I spent my whole career teaching cadets to follow orders. I believed it was the most important thing. Discipline, obedience, structure. He shook his head. I was wrong. You were not wrong, Yuna said. Those things are important, but they are not everything. Han laughed quietly. It was the first time she had ever heard him laugh. That is exactly what the faceless one told me. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Han spoke again. I have been thinking about why humans are different, he said. Why our minds work the way they do. I think I understand now. Tell me. Han leaned forward. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on stable worlds. Peaceful worlds. Worlds where the same patterns repeated for millions of years. They learned to recognize those patterns. Their minds became organized, efficient, predictable. He paused. But Earth was different. Our planet was chaos. Ice ages, meteor strikes, volcanoes, diseases. The climate changed every few thousand years. Species went extinct overnight. Nothing stayed the same. Yuna nodded slowly. She had never thought about it this way. So we evolved to expect change, she said. To expect chaos. More than that, Han said. We evolved to create chaos. To break patterns before they could trap us. It is in our blood. In our bones. We cannot help it. And that is why the Hollow cannot predict us. That is the theory. Han picked up his fork again. The Hollow are the ultimate pattern. They have consumed 17 civilizations because those civilizations thought in patterns too. They could not imagine an enemy that was pure chaos. But humans can. That night, Yuna dreamed of Earth. She had never been there, never seen it except in pictures and videos. But in her dream, she walked through a forest of burning trees. The ground shook beneath her feet. Animals ran in every direction. Nothing made sense. Nothing followed rules, and she felt at home. The next day, she was called to a meeting she had not expected. The 3 alien instructors were there, along with Commander Tay and several other officers she did not recognize. But there was also someone new. A human woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen terrible things. "This is Admiral Jia," Commander Tay said. "She commands our forces on the front lines." Admiral Jia looked at Yuna for a long moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was rough, like sandpaper. "I have been fighting the Hollow for 23 years, she said. "I have lost more soldiers than I can count. I have watched planets fall. I have seen things that would break most people." She paused. "And I have never seen anything like you." Yuna did not know what to say. She stayed silent. "Commander Tay sent me your training reports," the Admiral continued. "Your test results. Your simulations. You are not the strongest fighter. You are not the fastest thinker. But you do something that no one else can do." "What is that, Admiral?" Admiral Jia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You surprise them. Every single time. The A is we used to simulate hollow behavior cannot predict what you will do next. You break every pattern they expect." The Valorans spoke up. "We ran 17,000 simulations. In each one, we programmed the AI to learn from the previous simulation, to adapt, to become smarter. And?" Yuna asked. "And you won every single one." The room fell silent. Yuna felt the weight of everyone's eyes on her. She felt the pressure of their expectations pressing down like a physical force. "How?" she whispered. The faceless one answered. "We do not know. That is the beautiful thing. That is the terrifying thing. Even we cannot understand what you do differently. Your mind is a mystery to us, a chaos we cannot decode." Admiral Jia stood up. She walked around the table and stopped in front of Yuna. "In 3 days," she said, "I am returning to the front lines. We have received intelligence that the Hollow are preparing a major attack. They are going to strike at the heart of our defense network." She put her hand on Yuna's shoulder, just as Commander Tay had done months ago. "I want you to come with me. I want you to see what we are fighting. And I want you to show us how to win." Yuna looked at the Admiral's eyes. She saw 23 years of war in those eyes. 23 years of loss and pain and failure. But she also saw hope. Small and fragile, but real. "I will come," Yuna said. Admiral Jia nodded. "Good, because if you cannot save us, no one can." Yuna thought about her parents again. She thought about Sora. She thought about the quiet life she had left behind. Then she thought about the Hollow. The patterns. The endless, consuming patterns, and she smiled. "Then let us break some patterns." The observation deck emptied quickly after the Valoran spoke. Cadets were sent back to their rooms. Training sessions were canceled. Even the automated cleaning drones that usually swept the arena were shut down. Something important was happening, and only a few were allowed to witness it. Yuna sat in a small room she had never seen before. It was deep inside the academy, past doors that required special codes and hallways that were not on any map. The walls were made of a dark material that seemed to absorb light. There were no windows. Across from her sat the 3 alien instructors. Behind them stood Han, his arms crossed over his chest. His face was still pale, but his eyes were sharp. He was listening carefully to everything. At the head of the table sat someone new. His name was Commander Tay, and he was the highest-ranking human officer at the academy. Yuna had seen him twice before, both times from far away. He was an older man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands. He had fought in wars that Yuna had only read about in history files. "Before we begin," Commander Tay said, "I need you to understand something, cadet. What we are about to tell you is classified at the highest level. Sharing this information with anyone, including your fellow cadets, would be considered treason." Yuna nodded slowly. "I understand, sir." "Good." Tay leaned back in his chair. "Then let us begin with a question. What do you know about the First Contact War?" Yuna thought for a moment. Every human learned about the First Contact War in school. It was the most important event in human history. 40 years ago, she said, humanity made first contact with alien life. The Keth found us. There was a misunderstanding. A human ship fired on a Keth vessel. The war lasted 3 months. "And how did it end?" Tay asked. "The Galactic Council stepped in," Yuna said. "They stopped the fighting. They offered humanity a place in the galactic community. We accepted." Tay nodded. "That is the official story. The story taught in schools. The story everyone believes." He paused. "It is not the whole truth." The Keth instructor shifted in its seat. Its copper scales made that clicking sound again. "Perhaps I should explain," it said. "Since my people were there." It leaned forward, and its dark eyes fixed on Yuna. "When we found your species," the Keth said, "we were not looking for new friends. We were looking for soldiers." Yuna felt her stomach tighten. "Soldiers? The galaxy is not at peace," the Keth continued. "It has never been at peace. There is a war being fought in the dark spaces between stars. A war that has lasted for 10,000 years. A war against an enemy that no one can defeat." The faceless instructor spoke next. Its voice filled the room like smoke. "We call them the Hollow. They are not alive in the way you understand life. They are patterns, systems. They spread across the galaxy like a disease, consuming everything in their path. They cannot be reasoned with," the Valoran added. "They cannot be stopped by force. They learn. They adapt. Every weapon we create, they copy. Every strategy we develop, they predict. They have destroyed 17 civilizations. They have killed trillions." Yuna looked at Commander Tay. His face was grim, but not surprised. He already knew all of this. "The Galactic Council did not save humanity out of kindness," Tay said. "They saved us because they needed us. They have been fighting the Hollow for 10,000 years, and they are losing. Slowly, steadily, losing." Han stepped forward. For the first time, he looked at Yuna with something other than disapproval. "The battle trial is not just a training exercise," he said. "It is a search. The Council has been looking for someone who can think differently. Someone whose mind does not follow the patterns that the Hollow have learned to predict. And in 237 years, the Valoran said, no one has passed until today. Until you." Yuna's head was spinning. She thought about her simple life on New Bizen. Her parents' small farm. The quiet evenings watching the stars. She had joined the academy because she wanted to see the galaxy. She wanted to have adventures. She had not expected this. "Why me?" she asked. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "I am not special. I am just a cadet. I do not have powers or abilities. I am not the smartest person in my class. I am not even the best fighter." The faceless one floated closer to her. "That is exactly why you are special," it said. "The Hollow cannot predict you because you do not fit any pattern. You do not think like a soldier. You do not think like a genius. You think like yourself. Every other species," the Keth said, "has patterns built into their minds. Valorans think in mathematics. My people think in hierarchies. The faceless ones think in networks. These patterns make us strong, but they also make us predictable. Humans are different, the Valoran said. Your minds are chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. You create patterns and destroy them in the same breath. You follow rules and break them for no reason at all. You are unpredictable. Commander Tay stood up and walked around the table. He stopped beside Yuna and looked down at her. 40 years ago, he said, when the Keth first met us, they ran tests on human soldiers. Psychological tests. Strategic tests. They wanted to understand how we think. He paused. They could not understand. Our minds do not work like theirs. We make decisions based on feelings. We change our strategies in the middle of battle for no logical reason. We see patterns that do not exist, and we miss patterns that are obvious. It drives them crazy, Han said with a small, bitter smile. But it also gives us an advantage. The Hollow cannot predict chaos. They cannot learn from randomness. And humans are the most random species in the galaxy. Yuna thought about this. She remembered all the times her teachers had told her she was doing things wrong. All the times she had been punished for not following instructions. All the times she had felt like there was something broken inside her. Maybe she was not broken. Maybe she was different. The battle trial, she said slowly, was designed to find humans who are the most unpredictable, the most chaotic. Yes, the Valoran confirmed. We hid the trap. We made it invisible using every trick we knew, every pattern, every system. We believed that if anyone could see through it, they would be able to see through the Hollow. And you saw it, the Keth said. You looked at the map and you knew. Not because you are smart, not because you are trained, but because something in your mind refused to accept the pattern. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not know if they were tears of fear or relief or something else entirely. What do you want from me? She asked. Commander Tay put his hand on her shoulder. It was a gentle touch, almost fatherly. We want to train you, he said. Really train you. Not to follow orders, but to break them. Not to fit patterns, but to destroy them. We want to turn you into a weapon that the Hollow cannot predict. And then, the Faceless One answered. And then we send you to fight in a war that has lasted 10,000 years. A war that we are losing. A war that you might be able to win. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about her parents on New Bizin. She thought about Sora, her only friend. She thought about all the people she would never see again if she said yes. Then she thought about the Hollow, the patterns, the systems that consumed everything in their path. She opened her eyes. When do we start? The arena was quiet now. Smoke still rose from the broken machines that lay scattered across the metal floor. Red lights blinked slowly on the walls, showing that the simulation had ended. In the middle of all this destruction stood a young woman. Her name was Yuna, and she was breathing hard. Her uniform was torn in 3 places. There was a cut on her left arm, and her dark hair had come loose from the tight bun she had made that morning. She looked around at the damage she had caused and felt nothing. No pride, no fear. Just the heavy beating of her own heart. From the observation deck high above, dozens of eyes watched her. Some of those eyes were human. Most were not. The Galactic Military Academy brought together species from across the known universe. Humans had only joined 15 years ago, and they were still considered the newest members. The youngest. The weakest. Yuna wiped blood from her lip and stood straight. She knew what was coming next. The doors at the far end of the arena slid open with a soft hiss. Senior Officer Han walked through them. He was a tall man with a hard face and cold eyes. He had been training human cadets for 8 years, and in all that time, he had never smiled at any of them. He believed that kindness made soldiers weak. Behind him came 3 alien instructors. The first was a Valoran, a being made of pale blue skin and 4 long arms. The second was a Keth, short and wide, with scales that shone like copper. The third was something Yuna had never seen before. It had no face that she could recognize, just a smooth surface that seemed to shift like water. Han stopped 10 steps away from Yuna. He held a datapad in his hands, and he looked at it for a long moment before speaking. "Cadet Yuna," he said. His voice was flat. "Do you understand what you did today?" Yuna did not answer right away. She had learned that Han liked to ask questions. He would answer himself. "You broke formation within the first 30 seconds, Han continued. "You ignored 3 direct commands from your squad leader. You abandoned your assigned position and ran straight into enemy territory without support or backup." He looked up from the datapad. His eyes were like stones. "Your teammates completed their objectives," he said. "They followed orders. They worked together. And you? You ran off like a wild animal." Yuna felt her hands tighten into fists at her sides. She wanted to speak. She wanted to explain. But she knew it would not matter. Han had already made up his mind. The other cadets watched from behind a glass wall. There were 12 of them, all human, all wearing the same gray uniforms. Among them was Minho, Yuna's squad leader. He had a bruise on his cheek from where a training drone had hit him. He was looking at Yuna with something that might have been anger or might have been confusion. Next to him stood Sora, the only person in the squad who had ever been kind to Yuna. Sora's face was pale. She looked scared, not for herself, but for her friend. Han took another step forward. "The battle trial is not about individual glory," he said. "It is about teamwork. It is about following orders. It is about trusting the system that has kept this galaxy safe for 1,000 years." He paused and let his words hang in the air. "You trusted nothing," he said. "You followed no one. You acted alone." Yuna finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "The simulation was wrong." Han's eyebrows rose slightly. This was not what he had expected. "Wrong?" He repeated. "The enemy positions," Yuna said. "They were a trap. If the squad had followed the planned route, we would have walked into an ambush. 47 combat drones were hidden in the eastern sector. They were waiting for us." Han looked at his datapad again. Then he looked at the alien instructors. The Valoran's 4 arms had gone very still. The Keth was not moving at all. "There was no information about hidden drones in the briefing," Han said slowly. "I know," Yuna said. "That is why it was a trap." For a moment, no one spoke. The arena was completely silent. Even the distant hum of the station's engines seemed to fade away. Han shook his head. "It does not matter," he said. "Even if you were right, you broke protocol. You disobeyed direct orders. In real combat, that kind of behavior gets people killed." "In real combat," Yuna said, "following those orders would have killed everyone." Han's face grew hard. He did not like being challenged, especially not by a cadet, especially not by a human cadet who had only been at the academy for 6 months. "You have failed the battle trial," he said. The words came out sharp and final. "You will be removed from the advanced training program. Your record will show this failure. Do you understand?" Yuna said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Han turned to look at the alien instructors. He expected them to nod, to confirm his judgment, to add their own words of criticism. This was how it always worked. The alien species had been running these trials for centuries. They knew the rules better than anyone, but the instructors did not move. Han frowned. "Honored instructors," he said, "do you have anything to add?" The Valoran did not respond. Its 4 arms hung at its sides like dead things. Its large black eyes were fixed on Yuna, but there was no movement behind them. The Keth was the same. Its copper scales had stopped shifting. It stood like a statue made of metal. The faceless one was the strangest of all. Its smooth surface had stopped moving completely. It was like looking at a frozen pond. Han felt something cold run down his spine. In all his years at the academy, he had never seen the instructors act like this. They were always moving, always watching, always ready to judge. But now they were still. Completely still, instructors? Han said again. His voice was less certain now. Yuna looked at them too. She had noticed their silence before Han did. She had noticed a lot of things that others missed. That was why she had seen the trap in the simulation. That was why she had run toward danger instead of away from it. She did not know what was happening, but she knew it was important. The other cadets pressed closer to the glass. Minho whispered something to Sora, but she did not respond. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. And then, very slowly, the Valoran moved. It raised one of its forearms and pointed directly at Yuna. When it spoke, its voice was like wind through hollow bones. "This one," it said. "This one saw." Han's face went pale. He took a step back without meaning to. "Saw what?" he asked. But somewhere deep inside, he already knew the answer. And it terrified him. The Valoran's words echoed through the arena like a bell being struck in an empty church. "This one saw." 3 simple words, but they changed everything. Han stood frozen in place. His datapad hung loose in his hand. He had trained hundreds of cadets over the years. He had watched them succeed and fail. He had given speeches about discipline and order and the importance of following rules. But he had never heard an instructor speak those words before. "I do not understand," Han said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Weak, uncertain. The Valoran lowered its arm slowly. Its black eyes never left Yuna's face. "Senior Officer Han," it said, "how long have the battle trials been conducted at this academy?" Han swallowed. 237 years, he said. "Since the academy was founded." "And in all that time," the Valoran continued, "how many cadets have failed the trial for breaking formation?" Han thought about this. The number was not small. "Thousands," he said. "Perhaps tens of thousands." "Yes." The Valoran nodded its head, a gesture it had learned from humans. "Tens of thousands. From every species. Valorans, Keth, humans, others. They all broke formation. They all ran into the eastern sector. They all died." Han felt his throat go dry. "Died? But this is a simulation. No one dies in the simulation." "In the simulation, no," the Valoran agreed. "But the simulation is based on real combat data. Real battles. Real deaths." It paused. "The trap in the eastern sector is not a mistake. It was designed. It has been part of every battle trial since the beginning." Behind the glass wall, the cadets were talking quickly among themselves. Minho's face had gone white. He had led his squad on the planned route. He had followed every order perfectly. And if Yuna was right, he had walked his entire team into a killing zone. Sora grabbed his arm. "Minho," she whispered. "What does this mean?" But Minho could not answer. He could only stare at Yuna standing alone in the center of the arena. Han took a step toward the instructors. His fear was turning into something else now. Something sharper. "Are you saying," he said slowly, "that the battle trial is designed to fail?" The Keth finally moved. Its scales made a soft clicking sound as it shifted its weight. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Not to fail," the Keth said. "To test." "Test what?" Han demanded. The faceless instructor answered. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like a thought that appeared directly in the mind. "To test if any species can see beyond the obvious. To test if any soldier can trust their own eyes more than their orders. To test if anyone can break the pattern." Yuna listened to all of this without moving. She had suspected something was wrong with the trial from the moment she had studied the mission briefing. The enemy positions were too perfect. The route was too clear. Everything had felt like a path leading to a single destination. And paths like that, in her experience, always led to traps. She had grown up on a colony world called New Bizin. It was a hard place, full of dangers that did not show themselves until it was too late. Sinkholes that appeared under your feet. Storms that came without warning. Animals that looked like rocks until you stepped on them. Her mother had taught her to watch. Her father had taught her to think. And both of them had taught her that the most dangerous thing in the universe was a path that looked too easy. "Cadet Yuna," the Valoran said. "How did you know?" Yuna looked at the alien instructor. She had never spoken to a Valoran before. She had heard they could live for 500 years. She wondered how many cadets this one had watched fail. "The timing was wrong," she said. "The mission briefing said we had 12 minutes to reach the objective. But the route would take 14 minutes if we moved at standard speed. That meant we had to hurry. And when soldiers hurry, they stop watching." The Valoran tilted its head. "Go on." "The enemy positions were marked on the map," Yuna continued. "But they were marked too clearly. In real combat, you never know exactly where the enemy is. You guess. You estimate. But the briefing showed us precise locations. That felt wrong." She paused, remembering how she had felt when she first read the briefing. That cold feeling in her stomach. That voice in her head that said something is not right. "So I looked at the parts of the map that were not marked," she said. "The empty spaces. And I realized the eastern sector had too many places to hide. Too many blind corners. Too many shadows." The cat made a sound that might have been laughter. "She found the trap by looking at nothing." "Not nothing," Yuna said. "I looked at what was missing." Han was shaking his head. He looked like a man whose entire world was falling apart. "This is impossible," he said. "I have trained cadets for 8 years. I have taught them to follow orders, to trust the system. Are you telling me I've been teaching them wrong?" The faceless instructor floated closer to him. "You have been teaching them what you were taught," it said. "Obedience, discipline, structure. These are important things. But they are not everything." "Then what is everything?" Han asked. "Sight," the faceless one said. "True sight. The ability to see what others cannot. To question what others accept. To break free from patterns that everyone else follows blindly." Behind the glass, Sora pushed her way to the front. She pressed her hand against the surface and stared at Yuna with wide eyes. They had become friends in their first week at the academy, when Yuna had helped her carry supplies to the training rooms. Sora had always known that Yuna was different, quieter, more careful, always watching, but she had never understood why until now. The Valoran raised all 4 of its arms in a gesture that Yuna did not recognize. "In 237 years," it said, "tens of thousands of cadets have taken the battle trial. They came from dozens of species. Some were brilliant soldiers. Some were genius tacticians. Some had abilities that humans cannot even imagine." It lowered its arms. None of them saw the trap. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. The ripples spread outward, touching everyone in the room. Han opened his mouth, then closed it again. He did not know what to say. The cat stepped forward. Its copper scales caught the light and threw it back in scattered patterns. "We designed the trap to be invisible," it said. "We use the same patterns that work in real combat. The same tricks that have killed millions of soldiers across thousands of years. We made it perfect." "And she saw it anyway," the faceless one added. "A human. A cadet. A child by our standards." Yuna did not feel like a child. She felt tired. Her arm was still bleeding, and her legs were starting to shake from the effort of standing so long. But she kept her back straight and her eyes forward. "What happens now?" she asked. The three instructors looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Yuna could not read their alien expressions, but she sensed something important was being decided. Finally, the Valoran turned back to face her. "Now," it said, "we must tell you the truth." Han stepped forward. "What truth? What are you hiding?" But the Valoran ignored him. Its black eyes stayed fixed on Yuna. When it spoke again, its voice was softer, almost gentle. "The battle trial is not just a test," it said. "It is a search. For 237 years, we have been searching for someone like you." "Like me?" Yuna asked. "Someone who can see," the Valoran said. "Someone who can break free. Someone who might be able to save us all." The arena fell silent. Not the silence of ending, but the silence of beginning. Something had changed. Something had shifted. And nothing would ever be the same again. Yuna stood in the center of it all, bleeding and exhausted, and wondered what she had just become.